Welcome to the Kids Edition. We are going to talk about Chapter 13, Gender and Crime. Just hit a couple of points really quickly on this one. The first thing, it's on the very first slide. I said this at the very beginning of the year, that criminology as a science does not have any laws. If we were to have a law, it would probably be this, that gender is the strongest and most consistent correlate of crime. Across time, across space, across culture, what we find, or tend to find, is that men commit more crime than women. And so that's a really important point from this chapter. Then, that leads us to the question as, why? That's what criminologists, that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to figure out why men might commit more crime than women if we're looking at the gender question. So, this chapter provides us with a handful of explanations. I'm not going to go through all of them. The slides talk about them a bit, and the book talks about them in even more depth. But there are a couple of things that I want to touch on. There are two problems in the study of gender and crime. The first is what we refer to as the generalizability problem. What this means is that most of the theories that we've talked about this semester are looking at criminal participation and asking why people participate in that. But because men participate in more crime than women, by default, the question that we're asking is, why do men commit crime? So do the theories that we have come up with, that we've talked about all semester, can we generalize those findings? Can we apply those findings to the behaviors of females as well? Or are those theories almost by default, because men commit most crime, are they explaining just the behaviors of men? So that's one of the biggest problems that we have to grapple with in criminology, and it leads us to a couple of really interesting questions. We can either ask, why are women's crime rates so low, or conversely, why are men's crime rates so high? So some of the ideas behind why women's crime rates are so low is that a lot of the theories deal with kind of a gendered approach to things. We can look at gender roles specifically. Do the roles that men learn about when they are younger and that women learn about when they are younger, do they contribute to their behaviors when they are older? For instance, if you grew up in a really quote-unquote traditional household, are there female jobs and male jobs? Are there boy toys and girl toys? I can share an example. My mother-in-law, I remember when my kids were younger, I have, as you saw at the beginning of this video, I have a 9-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. And they would be playing around my mother-in-law's house, and my mother-in-law would always say, like, if my son was roughhousing, she'd kind of chuckle and just say, oh, boys being boys. But if my daughter would do it, she would kind of be like, oh, she's very energetic. And it was almost like this idea that it was an okay behavior for a boy and it wasn't a good behavior for a girl. And this was kind of that idea of teaching gender to kids, that there are certain behaviors that are okay. And within our kind of traditional society, much like my mother-in-law, she's not at all out of the ordinary in this, is that there's a lot of people that kind of have these roles that men and women are supposed to fill. And if those roles that are most commonly filled by men kind of socialize them or teach them to be aggressive or to take risks or to be physical in their playtime and in their activities, and it teaches women to be a little bit more sensitive, to be more communicative, to try and solve problems by talking them out, then that's going to lead people in this path that we might see more men committing crime than women. So that's one idea, and there's a handful of others that are talked about in the chapter. You know, we could also talk about some of the things that we spoke of at the very beginning of this semester. There's obviously biological differences in speed and size and strength, in spatial skills and verbal skills and empathy. Those biological differences across the board between men and women, and some of those things might lend themselves more to the commission of crime for men than for women. There's hormones that men have more of that might lead to more aggressive behavior, and all of that stuff could contribute to this. So the fact is, we know men commit more crime than women. We know that this is true kind of across time and space, across different cultures. Then we have to start grappling with why. And this chapter, I think, does a pretty good job introducing some of the ideas that criminologists have articulated up to this point in time, and that's going to be a question that we'll be trying to figure out for a long time, I imagine. Hope you all are doing well. I'll post another couple of videos for the chapters next week. Let me know if you need anything. I'll talk to you guys soon.